After the Pace Pro core is now also releasing the Pace with Exotech Dacron, which is a high-strength Dacron material. Here the front tube is supported by a 7-point bridle without pulleys. The steering lines are connected directly to the tip, and there are 3 different options, allowing you to adjust bar pressure and turning speed. The core pace is inflated and deflated using the well-known core valve. The one-pump system is kept very short and straight. As mentioned earlier, the material of the front tube is a high-strength Dacron, which is reinforced with additional rectangular polyester threads. The front tube is sealed here with a simple Kedar seam, which is doubled and stitched from the inside. For the canopy, core uses a triple ripstop material. The trailing edge is wide, and there are several slats on each side to prevent fluttering of the trailing edge. We have line deflectors at the end of the front tube and on both outer struts. The middle strut does without line deflectors. All transitions between the segments of the front tube, as well as all impact and abrasion points, are reinforced with rubberized material. The struts are each attached to the canopy with a double zigzag seam and are doubled and glued from the inside. And at the transition from the front tube to the canopy, a narrow strip of fabric has been added as an extra layer. Compared to the more elongated three-strut Freeride high-performance kites, the Pace has very good planing ability with truly excellent acceleration as well. Even compared to the in-house Pace Pro, the performance here is slightly higher than with the Alula model. The kite is very quickly and evenly powered up in both sizes we tested, and then delivers a consistently strong forward drive without needing an additional sinus movement. The Pace is one of those kite models that sits a bit further out at the edge of the wind window. Accordingly, it's no surprise that you can achieve excellent upwind performance here. Whether with the twin tip or with the foil, it's absolutely the same in both cases. You don't need to make any corrections here either, so positioning within the wind window isn't necessary. The canopy remains steady in its position, and even at a hard upwind angle, it delivers a consistent drive forward. The bar feeling with the Pace is light and precise. This means that both steering and control forces are below average, almost in the light range. The compromise regarding the ability to feel where the kite is in the wind window has been achieved very well. Accordingly, this is also a very good choice for riders who aren't as physically strong. Since the combination of direct response to steering input and the resulting power within a very short distance, you can definitely speak of a very good, explosive power delivery here. If you compare this to the in-house Pace Pro, the Alula model is just a little bit different, more aggressive. This is especially true for the upper wind range with the Pace Pro. With the Pace, the maximum power comes more from the base pull, which has just a bit more punch. If we look at the flight characteristics of the Pace, it turns very quickly and also in very tight radii. The whole thing goes hand in hand with a high to very high flight speed, which is even a bit higher with the Pace Pro. Whether you steer the radii tight or wide, they are absolutely round in any case. The kite is supported very cleanly and firmly by the 7-point bridle. However, compared to the Pace Pro, it is not quite as stiff. This is especially noticeable in the uppermost wind range. In the lower to normal wind range, you will never have any problems or instability. We're really only talking about the absolute extreme range here, where you might have to make the tiniest of compromises. Thanks to the long D-power throw, the pulleys, and also the really clean suspension via the 7-point bridle, the Pace D-powers perfectly, allowing you to enjoy a very long and controlled wind range upwards. The most important aspect of kites of this type is, of course, their jumping characteristics. The Pace really performs very well in this regard. We do have a bit more baseline pull than with the Pace Pro, but it still doesn't sit much deeper in the wind window. So there are no lateral forces before takeoff. Accordingly, it's also very easy to jump with it even if your technique isn't perfect. So you don't have to hold the edge extremely here. It's easy to load up the kite, and with its explosive power release, which isn't quite as strong as the Pace Pro, but as mentioned, is compensated by the baseline pull, and in normal wind conditions you can actually say that the result is pretty much exactly the same. So really, the only difference shows up when you fly a 9 square meter kite in 35 or 40 knots, then the Pace Pro is just a little bit superior in that situation. But that's certainly intentional. Let's take a look at the hang time. In normal wind conditions, it actually achieves even slightly better values, and even when it comes to passive jumping. That is, when you don't steer it that much. It's a kite that likes to be moved, just like its in-house brother. But when you jump passively with it, it definitely delivers more performance than the Pace Pro. And if you compare it to the many competitors or rival products in this segment today, the performance is absolutely at the highest level that you can get here. It's a playful kite because it can be moved so quickly and easily. It has a high flight speed, and even during a kite loop, it goes far enough behind you so that you can slow it down very nicely. And thanks to the consistently high and thorough level of feedback, it's not that hard to control. For those who occasionally like to ride unhooked, its performance is definitely more than sufficient. However, it sits a bit further out and could be positioned a bit more into the wind window, and after the tricks, it just keeps pulling quite consistently. It has enough power for the freestyle sector, but in the in-house portfolio, there are some models that are even better suited for that. First of all, it has to be said that the Pace is a kite that is very easy to fly, and that's true for all weight classes and all physical types. Accordingly, it is basically suitable for all skill levels. However, the main focus here is definitely on the athletically ambitious to sporty riders. One tester put it quite well: this is truly a Freeride high-performance big air kite that performs just as well as the class leaders across a wide wind range, but doesn't cost quite as much. Of course, nowadays everything is very, very expensive, but that's another discussion. What sets it apart from our perspective is the playful aspect it definitely offers, but at the same time, it remains reliable. And of course, another question we often ask ourselves, and which is also a topic in other companies, is, do you really need an Alula kite to achieve maximum performance here? Or where is the point at which it is enough for you as it is? Of course, it always depends on the wind strength as a rule. In this case, however, the Pace actually performs a bit better in the normal wind range. Especially for the somewhat less active rider, meaning someone who doesn't move the kite as much, but rather lets it stand a bit more. That one actually gets even better hang time, and can achieve lift just as well through the basic pull as someone who actively sets the edge cleanly accordingly. The difference only really becomes apparent if you want to use it in truly extreme wind conditions. Then you notice that even the Dacron, the Exotech here, can no longer provide maximum stiffness, and that's where Alula is simply, you have to say, superior. But for anyone who isn't a pro and isn't competing on the World Tour, the regular Pace should absolutely meet all their needs. Plus, it saves you another 1,000 euros. The Pace here is priced at 2,249 euros, which is on par with Duoton SLS. Not cheap, but definitely worth its price.